Speaking of spice, she remembers Sean couldn't handle it either. If this guy is really Sean, he should be struggling with all this heat, just like he did back in Russia. She watches his trembling hand, thinking he's having a tough time. But instead, he's giving thumbs up after thumbs up to the lady, raving about how delicious the food is. The woman is happy and keeps feeding him. Rachel realizes he's actually handling all that spice like a pro. She is confused, wondering why he's chowing down on this fiery food like a fool instead of refuting to eating it. Rachel then remembers that Sean helped this woman carry bags with just her one command, and now he's eating without refusing her and helping her with everything she asks for, as if he's following her every command. Seems like she's finally pieced it together. He also would not have killed all those people so skillfully without any commands, and she's sure he was ordered to destroy the Byung-woo construction purposefully. The only person who seems likely to give such orders is the woman he's with. After connecting the dots, Rachel decides to test her theory to see if this woman is really the one commanding Sean. She pays the bill for her food, and while the mother turns to grab some spare change, Rachel sees her chance. She grabs a chopstick and throws it toward the woman. Just as she hoped, Sean leaps from his seat, intercepts the chopstick midair, and grabs the woman by her face. The stool nearby tips over as they quickly vanish. When the mother turns around, both of them are gone. When we finally see them, Rachel can't contain her excitement after realizing that it's definitely Sean. On the other hand, it does not take long for our boy to figure out who she is, telling her to drop the act and stop tailing him like that. Rachel greets him officially and asks why he's hanging out with that woman and why he is following her orders like she's his mom. She is sure that there's no way a rundown snack shop owner could be connected to a top kid from Dead Mansion. Sean stays tight-lipped, so Rachel decides to take action. She grabs his hand, launches him into the air, and slams him down to the ground like a sack of potatoes. I can tell the impact was pretty rough, judging by his groans of pain. Rachel then tells him to stop messing around. It's time for him to get back to the orphanage, because there's a whole line of clients waiting for him. Suddenly, Sean's mind flashes back to the painful memories which had been buried in his mind. He is standing in the middle of knocked-out kids, and he's probably the one who left them out cold during their training. There is also this mysterious woman who gave him the name Park Syan, but he can't seem to remember her. In a sudden burst of shock, Sean blurts out and asks Rachel who this woman in his memories is. Rachel is confused by his random question, but before she can respond, Sean smashes his head into her nose, pushes her away, and gets back on his feet. As she pushes the blood out of her nose, her fury flares up. She demands to know if he really doesn't want to come back without a fight. But before she can make a move, Sean has already run away. He's sprinting across the rooftops, blown away that they sent Rachel after him. The image of the bloodied woman keeps flashing in his mind, and he's determined to figure out who she is, haunting his memories. Back at the Dead Mansion, the director is having a full-on meltdown over the news that Sean managed to escape. Rachel apologizes, saying he slipped away while she was momentarily distracted. But she also brings some good news. They've tracked down the old woman who's controlling Sean with the 3 principles. Turns out she's the one Sean recognizes as his parent. The director is thrown for a loop. How can an old woman be perceived as a parent? He asks Rachel if the old lady is intentionally using the 3 principles, but Rachel admits she can't be sure yet, and more investigation is needed before jumping to conclusions. The director decides it's best to verify things with the old woman before sending more resources after Sean. After a wardrobe change, Rachel steps out of the bathroom in this old lady disguise, leaving this other old woman confused, who can bet her life that she just had seen a young girl enter the restroom earlier. Meanwhile, the director is busy explaining to us that there are only 2 ways to retrieve a good child from their parents, and we'll learn about the first method soon enough. Back with Hyunho's mother, she is taken aback by the appearance of this elegant old lady. Rachel, under the disguise, sternly advises her to keep her distance from Sean. She introduces herself as Sean's mother, noting that she's often busy with business trips and hasn't paid much attention to her child. Now she's all dramatic about how it breaks her heart that Sean's been eating such awful spicy food. Hyunho's mother suddenly realizes that Sean can't handle spicy food and feels a bit of guilt for making him eat it all this time. It's a harsh wake-up call that she's been feeding him stuff that's clearly not good for him. Rachel is grinning inside, thrilled that this old hag is finally feeling some guilt. This is exactly the kind of reaction she was hoping for. You see, by getting the parent to voluntarily give up custody of the child is the first way to take a child back from the parent. And this is what Rachel is trying to achieve. So, she keeps her smooth talk, saying she understands that Sean listens to Hyunho's mother. So, Rachel tells her that when Sean comes back to eat here, she should sternly tell him never to return and go back home. It's a dirty play on Rachel's part, but it's all part of the plan. If Hyunho's mother tells Sean to go home, he'll take it as an order and head straight back to the Dead Mansion. Rachel starts to leave, but Hyunho's mother surprises everyone by refusing to say what Rachel suggested. Looks like Rachel's plan isn't going as smoothly as she hoped. Hyunho's mother speaks up, and it's a gut punch to Rachel's plan. She asks Rachel if she's even paid attention to her own son. She reveals that Sean is always covered in filth and dirt, and whenever she asks him about it, he just always says he fell. At first, she used to think he was just being a rebellious kid, but now it breaks her heart. It's clear to her that Sean needs someone who truly cares for him, unlike this rich woman who's clearly abandoned him. As she cries, she admits that she's come to care about Sean and doesn't want him to end up like Hyunho. She's willing to step up and take care of him since there's no one else around. Rachel clearly gets ticked off to hear this, and tries to tear into the old woman, but Hyunho's mom just bows her head and apologizes, saying she didn't mean to come off as rude. She's determined to keep an eye on Sean, no matter what. Seems like Rachel's first plan to snag Sean's ownership didn't go as smoothly as she'd hoped, and she's fuming. As night falls, she calls up the director and spills the beans about the failed attempt. The director seems disappointed to hear this, and he is clearly running out of patience. So, he gave her the green light to proceed with the second method. Rachel, now fully on board with this plan, eagerly agrees and looks forward to putting it into action. With a determined look, she sheds her garments to reveal a more wild side of herself, signaling that things are about to get serious. It turns out that, upon the death of the parent, the child reverts to the ownership of the dead mansion. So, her new target is Hyunho's mother. The scene shifts to outside a mart, where Hyunho's mother is seen shopping for groceries for her shop. And we can also see Rachel lurking in the shadows. She waits for the perfect moment, her finger poised over the detonate button of a bomb. When she decides it's time, she presses it, and the explosion rips through the air. The fire alarms blare and sprinklers kick on, dousing everything in water. But the blast wasn't aimed at Hyunho's mom, because it was merely a diversion. As Rachel's gun comes into view, she takes her aim. Just as she pulls the trigger, Sean swoops in, wielding a pan like a makeshift shield, and the bullet ricochets off his impromptu defense. Sean's face is etched with annoyance, while Rachel appears to be having the time of her life. Sean is amazed to see that the bullet-blocking move he picked up from a game life. He then drops the pan and strides toward Rachel, looking clearly annoyed by her actions. Like, he already knew that she would do something like this, but he reminds her that involving guns and bombs into the mix is just way too much. Rachel just smirks, her gun still aimed at the mother. Sean reacts quickly and shoves the shelf she was hiding behind. But the girl quickly bolts away before that shelf crashes over her. He then takes her by surprise and quickly disarms her with just one kick at her hand. But this girl is not messing around, and she quickly pulls out a dagger and swings at him, slashing his belly. Blood splatters to the ground, or so it seems. In reality, it was just a tomato ketchup tin our boy was holding that got punctured in the process. Sean tosses the ketchup tin away, making her lose her last weapon. He quickly tries to smash her with his knee, but she ducks and shoves his feet, sending him crashing into the shelves. She then asks him if he seriously thinks he can take her teacher down like this. She says she wanted to bring him back unharmed, but it looks like that's not an option anymore. Meanwhile, the mother is still trying to figure out what's going on, and that's when she spots a little kid stuck in the chaos, crying his eyes out. Amid all the commotion, he's sobbing for his mom. The woman rushes over, asking if he's hurt. The tearful kid just says he wants to go back to his mom. He asks her to help him get out of there, but it turns out this little punk is holding a sharp knife. No surprise if he's one of those specially trained kids here to assist Rachel to assassinate her. Back to the senior-junior showdown. She pulls out another knife and tries to hit him, but he jumps out of the way. She goes for another slash, but he ducks and avoids her. He grabs her hand, and she tells him to stop resisting because they're just trying to free him from everyone's control. Just then, he gets momentarily distracted, and Rachel seizes the moment. She pulls her hand free and swings her dagger at his face, slicing his cheek with deadly accuracy. He stumbles but quickly gets his footing. He grabs 2 cans from a nearby shelf and chucks them at her face, but she just knocks them away and tells him to let the old hag die. If he does, he can head back to the dead mansion whenever he wants. Sean then grabs a packet of flour and throws it right at her face. She makes the dumb mistake of slashing at the flour packet, sending it floating through the air and blocking her view. While struggling to breathe through the flour, she doesn't notice the scissors coming her way. Thanks to her quick reflexes, she narrowly avoids a serious cut, ending up with just a small mark on her face and her hair slightly trimmed. She quickly steps back, but Sean takes another swing at her. She drops to the floor, and with a crazy grin she gets back up and comes at him with her blades. Their strengths seem pretty evenly matched. Or maybe he's just better than his teacher now. Before she can figure out her next move, he grabs her hand and shoves her into a grocery cart, leaving her stuck inside like a little kid. Sean gives her a cold stare and asks if she has learned her lesson, but the woman just grunts in frustration. Sean tells her to leave him and his mother alone, then kicks her cart forward, leaving her slamming into the other carts lined up, and he quickly locks her cart with the rest. With a smirk, he tells her to enjoy herself and walks off, leaving her stuck and grumbling. Back to the little maniac kid, he sees his chance and swings his dagger at her chest while she's looking away. But Sean swoops in just in time, leaving the little kid stunned right there. The mother's confused, wondering why he's here when he should be at school and why his clothes are all messed up. Meanwhile, the kid on the ground recognizes Sean as the legend of the dead mansion and figures that if Sean's here, Rachel must have already been beaten by him. The woman explains that this little guy has lost his mother. Sean asks the kid for his parents' phone number, but the kid acts clueless and starts fake crying as he runs toward Hyunho's mother. Sean quickly grabs him, lifts him up, and tells him to stop whining. He then gets close to the kid's ear and asks him if he hasn't learned that sticking out too much just makes people dislike you. He further playfully threatens the kid with some cryptic talk and gives him a little slap, making the dagger the kid was holding drop. Sean quickly steps on the dagger to hide it, and that one slap was enough to knock the kid out cold. After that little showdown, we're back at the dead mansion. The director wakes up in the middle of the night because of an unexpected phone call. Grumbling, he throws on his gown and heads to the phone, hoping for some good news to make this early wake-up worth it. When he hears the caller's voice, a smile spreads across his face as he recognizes it's Sean on the line. He asks the old man if he really thought he could catch him with just Rachel and that little kid, Eugene. The old man's face quickly goes pale as he asks if Rachel is dead. Sean doesn't give him a direct answer, just says that no matter how many people he sends, the result will be the same. He can send as many as he wants, but it won't change a thing. The old man gets really worked up when he hears Sean is taking on the entire dead mansion instead of running away. Sean makes it clear that if there's a threat to the parents' safety, he'll handle it based on the third principle. He's more than ready to stick to the rules because he sees the dead mansion as a real threat and will react accordingly. The old man, now on the ground and naked, breaks into a wide grin and starts laughing maniacally. He's overjoyed to see that the kid he raised is surpassing his expectations and thinks of Sean as a divine gift, perfectly following the three principles. He wishes Sean good luck and tells him to send the little kid back, promising not to attack the lady if Sean does that. Sean then tells the old man to call Rachel back, and the director just gets even more excited. Can't wait to meet Sean face to face. Sean tells Eugene to wake the hell up. As soon as this little brat opens his eyes, he goes on high alert. Sean informs him that he's already taken away all the weapons he was hiding, so he should save his breath instead of looking for them. He further tells the kid to eat the food since he hasn't had anything to eat. Eugene hesitates at first, but soon devours all the food in no time. Once they start heading out, Sean asks if he liked the food. But this moody brat replies, "Not really." Sean cheekily points out that if he didn't like it, he wouldn't have chowed down like a wild dog. While they're bantering, Rachel finally shows up and looks relieved to see that the kid is alive. Rachel quickly calls the kid over and he meekly walks toward her. Sean tells Rachel to take the food and make sure to fill her belly too. But this woman gives him a cold look, saying he shouldn't act so cool and chill because she hasn't given up on him yet. She walks off, saying they'll meet again soon. Rachel then starts scolding the little kid, asking why an annoying brat like him couldn't take down the old woman. Eugene apologizes for failing, and Rachel, annoyed, dismisses him. She tells him that useless brats like him should have been dealt with a long time ago. Her words make the kid shiver, and he apologizes again. Just then, Sean calls out to the kid from behind, asking if the tteokbokki he ate was tasty, and he is asking this for one last time, so he better question wisely. The kid tilts his head and, with tears streaming down his face, he says it was tasty. That's all Sean wanted to hear, and he wastes no time telling Eugene they're going back to Hyunho's snack bar to taste this delicious delight once again. Before we dive further into the story, here's a quick rundown of Eugene's past. As you might already know, the ownership of the children from the dead mansion belongs to the buyers, or parents. If these parents die, ownership reverts back to the dead mansion. Eugene had been adopted multiple times, but each time his parents died. This cycle continued, and after yet another return due to the death of his latest owner, the director was disappointed and muttered about how many times it had happened. The boy quickly responded that it was the fourth time, but the old man snapped that he didn't ask for an answer. The director then stated they would continue to profit by sending Eugene to new families, but failing to keep his parents alive 4 times was the worst disgrace in the history of the dead mansion. He didn't shy away from reminding Eugene that if this continued, they would have no choice but to dispose of him. The old man asks the kid if he knows what happens to children who get disposed of. With those little graves behind him, the kid can pretty much guess what's coming. The old man tells him he'll need to become someone important. He's got one last shot. Go to Korea and help Rachel get Sean. If he screws this up too, he's definitely done for. In the present moment, Rachel coldly reminds him that, right now, he's already considered disposed of. Freaked out and desperate to prove himself, the kid begs for another chance. Rachel just gives him an icy stare. While the kid is freaking out because of what's coming, Sean steps in to save the kid. He asks if he wants to enjoy some delicious food again. The crummy woman jumps at the chance and tells the little kid that he's been given one last shot and he has to kill that old woman. Hearing this, the kid is on the verge of tears. Realizing he's been granted a final chance to prove himself, he starts crying and quickly says the food was delicious. So, while we thought this crummy little brat was just thrilled because Sean wanted to free him, it turns out he's actually just grateful for another shot at redemption. On the other hand, Sean cracks his wrists, ready to take the kid back to the snack shop. Rachel can tell that he still sees her as a threat to the parent, so she's sure he's prepared to fight if necessary. Even though she would happily hand Eugene over, Rachel gets dramatic, asking why Sean is taking him after promising to let them go if they spared the old woman. Sean simply shrugs and says the kid wants to stay himself, and since he finds the food delicious, he has no choice but to take him with him. She finally resigns, and decides to let Eugene go with Sean. Before the little kid heads over to Sean, Rachel cryptically reminds him that this is his last chance and he better make it worthwhile. With that, the kid quickly walks over to Sean. Rachel then points out that since he's keeping the child and breaking his promise to let them leave, she declares that she'll also break her promise, and will always look for a chance to attack the old lady. Sean simply grabs the brat's hand and tells Rachel to do as she wishes. He adds that he won't hesitate to break her into pieces over and over again if she tries. Later, we're back at Hyunho's house. Sean pretends to yell at the little boy in front of Hyunho's mother. The woman quickly tells him to calm down and reminds him that he's the one who decided to look after the kid for the day. The boy admits it, but adds he doesn't want any more freeloaders crashing at her place for free food. The woman says she's perfectly fine with that. She also finds it interesting that this kid's mother is friends with Sean's mother. It turns out the truth isn't far off, as Sean's mother and this little brat are actually the same Rachel in disguise. The lady offers for them to stay, but Sean says it's not necessary. However, the little brat quickly thanks the woman, saying he'll be under her care from now on. Well, he can't let this opportunity slip because he wants to take her out at all costs. He then introduces himself as Eugene. Meanwhile, Sean is feeling a bit overwhelmed, as this is his first time at Hyunho's house. Sean asks if the room over there belongs to Hyunho, and she says it does. He asks if he can go inside, and the mother gives him the go-ahead. Sean walks into the room and finds it pretty ordinary, like something out of a drama or movie. It's the kind of room that feels like a moderately happy family lives there, with a vibe of everyday life and comfort. The room gives off a sense of warmth and normalcy that Sean has always longed for. It's the kind of typical family space he wished he could have been part of. He thinks Hyunho should have been here, living a happy, normal life, rather than being caught up in all the chaos. Once the brat finishes his meal, he thanks the lady and compliments her, saying everything was perfect, especially the omelet. The woman is pleased with the compliment. Then, the kid asks if he can ask her a question, and she agrees. He asks if, besides her son, there's any other family member living here, like a father. The woman is a bit caught off guard by the question and isn't sure how to respond. She tries to keep it light and says that unfortunately, her husband was needed so much in heaven that she had to let him go. The kid asks if he became a family member in heaven, to which the lady says that's pretty much it. Then, the kid points out that her son hasn't gone to heaven and hasn't returned home either. The woman is puzzled by this strange response. The kid continues, saying that a weak, useless child can't become family anywhere. The woman looks even more confused. The boy explains that a family is about fulfilling others' needs and proving one's worth to its members. Otherwise, they're just obstacles consuming resources, like her son who's in the hospital and unable to do anything. The lady is really pissed off and jumps up, saying that's completely wrong because that's not what a family is. The kid curiously asks what a family is then. But before she can answer, Sean playfully grabs the kid from behind and starts dragging him, asking if they can sleep in the living room. The woman agrees and mentions that Hyunho's room is empty, but Sean states that he can sleep in the living room over the sofas and the kid will just sleep on the floor. The mother's eyes warm up at their playful sight. As midnight strikes, we see Eugene's face is set in a scowl. It's clear that his displeasure stems from the fact that Sean is making him sleep over on the floor. He then notices light coming from Hyunho's room and decides to check it out. As he peeks inside, he sees the old woman sitting in a chair, looking at her son's photo. Eugene finds it odd that this woman calls her useless child a family, and even welcomes strangers like him as a family, whom she has never met before. He reflects on his own life, where a child's worth is measured by what they can produce for the family. He can't understand how being a so-called useless child can be considered family. Eugene quickly grabs the gun, aiming it at the old woman with trembling hands. He's desperate to prove his worth and become a necessary family member, believing that killing her is the only way to do it. But despite his determination, he just stands there, unable to pull the trigger. Sean quietly closes the door in front of him, and sternly asks if this is really what Eugene wants to do. Eugene's hands shake as he looks at Sean and admits he's just following orders. He then quickly turns the gun on our boy, telling him not to interfere. As he pulls the trigger, no bullet fires. Seeing this, Eugene looks puzzled, wondering why the gun is empty. Sean then scatters all those bullets down on the ground and reveals that he had already taken all the bullets away while Eugene was sleeping. He also knows that Rachel was the one who gave him the gun. Sean gives this brat death glares and extends his hand to grab the gun, pointing out that it's a 15-round 9mm parabellum that weighs 112.5 grams. He says the kid should have noticed the magazine was empty when he held the gun, and reminds him he's still just an amateur. Annoyed by the remark, the brat grabs his blade and tries to swing it at Sean. But he ends up pinned to the door by Sean, and as he turns the handle, the door swings open, sending them both crashing into the room. The little one quickly gets to his feet. Fortunately, the mother is still asleep at her desk and hasn't noticed the commotion. Sean gestures to the brat to keep quiet. But the little brat sees an opportunity and rushes forward. Sean quickly grabs that tie nearby, traps Eugene's feet with it, and makes him fall. But the kid manages to swing his blade and cut the tie almost immediately. Sean tells the kid to be a good little boy, but the kid's too stubborn. He leaps at Sean, trying to slash him with his tiny daggers. They go at it like two hyper ninjas, and it's clear Sean's holding back. This just makes Eugene even more furious, and he swings his dagger again, insisting Sean face him properly. Sean agrees, and before Eugene knows it, Sean has taken the dagger from his hand. The brat, frustrated, throws his other dagger at the lady, but Sean deflects it easily. He then pushes Eugene's feet against his own, causing him to fall. To keep the noise down, Sean quickly grabs the kid by his shirt before he hits the ground. Sean tells him with a smirk that he hasn't even started, and yet the brat is already down. But the little one just smiles in response, thrilled to be fighting the legendary figure from the dead mansion. Just as Sean is holding him, the mother slams a book over his head with a fury that could only come from the most dangerous person on the planet. She's absolutely livid that Sean is picking a fight with a little kid. Our boy quickly tries to reassure the angry mother that this isn't what it looks like. Meanwhile, the little brat grabs the dagger from the ground, seizing the opportunity to strike. Sean gives him a death glare and tells him to stop. Then, Sean quickly grabs the little one by the shoulders, reassuring the mother that they're just buddies having a morning exercise session and that the dagger is just a toy. Seems like this little one is still fixated on killing the woman, but realizes he won't get any chance while Sean is around, so he starts to think of a sneakier approach to get the job done. The lady turns to Eugene and tells him he shouldn't pick fights with his big brother because they're all one family under one roof. The word family catches Eugene off guard again, and he gets somber, finally asking why he's being considered part of this family. Sean quickly reminds him that they eat together and sleep under the same roof. The woman agrees and pats Eugene, saying that since he's living here, he's already part of the family. Just then, someone knocks on the door, calling out to see if anyone is inside. The mother goes to answer and, upon opening the door, finds a young high school girl. Well, or should I say, Rachel in disguise. Anyway, she greets the lady as Mother, apologizes for arriving so early, and introduces herself as Marie, Eugene's older sister. Rachel, in her Marie disguise, thanks the mother for taking care of Eugene. Sean peeks over and asks who's at the door. The mother tells him Eugene's sister has arrived to pick him up. Sean recognizes who this sister really is, so he steps outside to greet her. He asks Rachel what brings her here, and she simply says she's here to pick Eugene up. Rachel drops the little sister act and cheekily explains that she's there to take the boy back for the woman's safety. As agreed, Sean then asks if she's the one who ordered Eugene to kill the mother. Rachel leans in and whispers that it was just a temporary order from her, and there's nothing to worry about. Sean tells her first of all to put away the knives she's hiding before saying that. She tells our boy not to worry and reassures him that as long as he cooperates, there's nothing to fear. Sean is a bit creeped out by how casually she's threatening him and asks what happens if he doesn't cooperate. Suddenly, Eugene bursts out with a big smile, asking why his sister took so long to get here. He hugs her right away, and she's all dramatic, showing her happiness at seeing him. But while she's being all cheerful, she quietly reminds Eugene that he's failed again and that the director will be pretty disappointed. Eugene snaps at her, asking if she's playing dumb or something. He explains that he hasn't ditched his mission, he's just trying to blend in with these people as family before making his move against the woman. He reminds her that the mother is guarded by the legendary hand of the dead mansion. He might look like an unattractive dumb monkey, but he's no ordinary Joe. In fact, he has fought Sean many times and failed miserably each time. Rachel agrees, saying he really does look like a kind of fool monkey. She apologizes for messing up his operation, but reassures him there's nothing to worry about right now. They're ditching their current mission and heading back to the dead mansion right away. As Rachel extends her hand, the boy grabs it quietly, ready to leave with her. They announce they're heading out, and while Rachel shakes hands for a final goodbye, the little boy turns his head, telling her to let's go, probably because he doesn't want to look at the mother. He starts walking away with her. Just then, the mother calls out to Eugene, smiling and telling him to come back next time, and promises to make him an omelet just for him. The little one looks back at the mother with a touch of admiration, offering a faint smile and a simple nod to show he heard her. The mother then tells Sean to make sure to visit again with Eugene. She promises to cook up something nice for them both. Sean agrees and says he'll definitely bring Eugene along next time. The next day, we're at the school principal's office. The principal starts by apologizing for the delay, explaining that the school had to go through several committees to decide on the punishments, which took some time. He gives her the good news that the perpetrator's parents have promised to cover the damages and all the offending kids will be suspended. The woman listens quietly, and when the principal shows her the file listing all the perpetrators, she's stunned to see a familiar face, and she quickly asks what the hell Sean